The Cigar Nerds Podcast.
And welcome to the Cigar Nerd Podcast. I'm your host, Smokin' Joe. Silence, yeah, this is going to be a weird show, because normally this is the part where we hear, and I'm Brad Jackson. But there's no Brad Jackson. I'm here by myself for the very first ever Cigar Nerds solo show. Don't worry, Brad is still around. So, quick explanation. I wanted to get another show up before Halloween, and hopefully, if all goes well, y'all are hearing this on Halloween night, because I wanted to talk about some spooky shit. But Brad was working out of town, and then as soon as he got back into town, he caught the plague. So, yeah, I'm going to say fuck it. I'm just going to pound some monsters, get some caffeine in me, and I'm going to try to talk to y'all, do this show solo. I couldn't find any fill-in hosts this week, so we'll see if this sucks or not. And you also may notice I'm not smoking, so there's not going to be a, what are we smoking this week? Because, unfortunately, with Brad not being in here, I'm medically unable to smoke for the next 43 days. I'm having, as this show is released, I'm having surgery on Friday. Doctor said no tobacco use 4 weeks before your surgery or 6 weeks after. So normally the plan was there would at least be Brad or someone here to do a cigar review. But since you're just getting me, we got no review for you this week. But how about y'all give me a review? Like I said, I'm kind of using this opportunity because I still get bored sitting at home by myself. So I still go to the cigar shop just to hang out and socialize, and I will buy a stick while I'm there and use this time to kind of stock my home humidor. And I'm trying to buy something different every time I go in instead of buying my just kind of regular everyday smokes. That way my house humidor it's finally fully loaded and has a nice variety of smokes. So if you've got a favorite cigar that you've not heard us review on the podcast or whatnot, send it to us. Email us at cigarnerdpodcast@gmail.com or comment section of YouTube. Hit us up on our Facebook page. Give us your cigar recommendations for once. And normally, we're always giving you our recommendations. Hell, give us some recommendations. I am traveling to Mexico, so maybe I'll see if I can smuggle some Cubans back, and we can review those whenever I start smoking again. See if the hype is worth it. So, but like I said, hopefully this is going to be our Halloween episode, and I keep saying we because it's force of habit, but I'm going to be reviewing Werewolf by Night. And if I run out of things to say, hell, we'll throw in some other spooky shit I've seen this month. But with that, if you're going to hunt monsters with a bunch of creepy dudes, you should call in the Strike Force. StrikeForceEnergy.com. Use your promo code Cigar Nerds for 20% off your order. It's, comes in a nice tiny tin pouch, smaller than the Bloodstone, and it will get you like jacked up like, the Man Thing with some caffeine to get you going. And with that, we'll be right back. Or I'll be right back. And welcome back. Like I said, this is going to be a weird one because normally I'm not here doing this by myself. Not only am I having to keep you folks entertained with my general bullshit knowledge of movies and whatnot, I also have to run all the recording equipment, which, lately I've been editing, learning how to edit and doing all the editing stuff. But yeah, Brad still usually is the one recording this show while we are going. So if it sounds weird, it's my fault. Send Brad a message and be like, dude, hurry up and get your ass back here because Joe sucks at this. And listening to him ramble for, I don't know, this may be a short podcast, an hour or so, gets kind of boring. As you know, as you've heard me talk about probably numerous times, Halloween is my favorite time of the year. I mean, last episode we talked about day shift and the hunting vampires. Well, couldn't let Halloween pass without doing at least a second episode on some spooky shit. And this week we're talking about kind of Disney Plus, aka Marvel's. They're calling it a TV special, so it's not a. I think it's only an hour long, so it's not really what I would consider a feature length movie, but Werewolf by Night. Which, if you're not familiar with the it was like an old Marvel, I guess, kind of horror-esque comic, but you may have heard us mention it previously because, and like I said, I may be wrong. It's not like I actually Googled these things, but it was the first appearance of Moon Knight, which we really like that series. And Marvel Comics, he was introduced in Werewolf by Night. And the main character of that comic is, and this is how I know they were doing a lot of drugs back then, because the werewolf character is named Jack Russell. Yes, like the terrier. And, the guy named Jack Russell is a werewolf. Surprise. But yeah, so this was kind of Marvel's Halloween special entry into the MCU, which it seems like it's kind of becoming a new thing. These little one-off, where it's not a series like some of the Disney Plus stuff. It's not a full-length Marvel movie, but it's like a quick holiday special. I mean, we've got the Werewolf by Night for Halloween, and we're getting the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special. I hope it's better than the Star Wars Christmas special, which I've heard rumors they may try to do another one of those. So if you're not old enough and don't remember the attempt at the Star Wars Christmas special, which is widely regarded as some of the worst things ever released cinematically, so much so that, like, until Disney Plus, I think, brought it back, it was never released. Like, if you didn't see it when it was on TV, like, literally you had to find like these bootleg VHS copies at different con vendor halls. It was, and I think it exists on. I'm pretty sure now Disney Plus has it, but yeah, I think you could find some of it on YouTube. But one good thing it was the first appearance of Boba Fett. Boba Fett was introduced in an animated feature during that Star Wars Christmas special. And speaking of the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, I'll be talking about that when I get to Nerd News. So we'll see. So yes, Werewolf by Night, starring Gal, and I may horribly mispronounce any of these, Gal Garcia Bernal as Jack Russell, aka the Werewolf by Night. Laura Donnelly as Elsa Bloodstone. And Harriet Harris, no relation, as Verussa Bloodstone. Basically, Jack is a monster hunter afflicted with a curse that turns him into a werewolf. And in this one, there's who was also like a kind of legendary Marvel monster hunter in the Marvel verse of Ulysses Bloodstone, who had this basically, I think it was like a chunk of a meteor that gave him powers, and he used it to fight monsters, and it basically made him immortal or whatnot. And Elsa is his estranged daughter, who's also, like I said, in the comics, a monster hunter herself, played by the awesome Laura Donnelly, which, if you've never seen the series on HBO Max called The Nevers, so far they've only done one season of it, but she was kind of the leader on that show, and like a total badass. I mean, awesome fight scenes, and we get kind of the same here in this series. I can best describe it as Victorian era X-Men. That's, it's like a bunch of proper English people with superpowers, kind of like like steampunk X-Men, I guess would be another way to see it. So this starts off with blood Ulysses Bloodstone, monster hunter. His magical weapon of choice is the Bloodstone. Like I said in the comics, it was the thing that gave him his powers, but somehow he has passed away. Doesn't say if he finally died on a monster hunt or what, but the show starts off with a bunch of hunters, like the best of the hunters, gathering at his estate to do a competition, a sacred hunt, and whoever is able to take down the creature gets the Bloodstone and becomes the new leader of the freaking Hunters Union, or whatever the fuck they call themselves. But what's unique about this project, and probably one of the reasons why it was so good, is they tried very hard to recreate the old Universal Monsters movies, like, Nosferatu and The Mummy and all those stuff from like the 40s and early 50s, like the stuff you would see like on sci-fi, like late at night, those old black and white films. I mean, and the whole thing mostly is in black and white, and it even starts with kind of a high def black and white version of the Marvel crawl intro that we see in like all the Marvel movies. I mean, even the title cards look like some of those old 40s movies. They recreated that look and feel like so well. I mean, for kind of a movie nerd, it was the effort that went into making this modern, probably decent budgeted film look like something that was created 70 years ago, and nailed it. I mean, it's all kind of grainy, and like I said, that the black and white is just amazing. If you didn't know this was shot like now at freaking soundstage in Atlanta somewhere, you'd be like, oh, this is one of the classic even the soundtrack, that like kind of orchestral, if that's even a fucking word, cinematic score that's like just kind of makes things either extra creepy or extra kind of big. Like I said, they nailed the recreation of that style of film. It's like a minimalist thing. So, I mean, even the monsters just kind of just blend into that style of they look cool in black and white. Is I guess the word I'm trying to make. Oh man, run the show by myself is not easy, because when I have a brain fart and run out of things to say, there's usually like at least Brad to like pick up the slack. But no dead air. But the hell, this may end up being a 30-minute show. Oh, we shall see. But yeah, it starts off with this. You see Jack arriving at this estate as one of the hunters, and he's greeted by the other collection of hunters. There's a kind of a big Scottish hunter, and there's a guy who, at being this a monster hunting thing, I originally thought he was Blade, but no, just another. And there was like a kind of a ninja type dude, and there was some dude who looked like Ziggy Stardust, or Lady, whatever. But yeah, it was like a weird collection of hunters, and and then Elsa shows up, and apparently she's estranged from her father, did not appreciate the way she was raised to be a slayer, a warrior hunter, and also apparently her stepmother's a kind of a crazy bitch. Um, she returns on the on during her father's funeral, and she's like, I'm surprised to see you here. And she's like, well, give me what I came for, and I can just piss right off, and you ain't got to deal with me. And she's like, no, you gave up your rights to the bloodstone when you walked out. Yada yada yada. So she's like, you're more than welcome to try to compete for it with all the other hunters and see how you do. And it's very much a umbrella fucking shit. The thing on Squid Games, yes. Kind of competition where it's like, not only are you going to be facing a monster unlike anything you've ever seen before, but you're also fighting each other for the prize, which seems like a kind of a dumb thing. Like, hey, we got this crew of like secret monster hunters. Cool, somebody's gonna get the bloodstone, but then we're gonna have to rebuild the Monster Hunters Club because we just killed everybody. So yeah, it's very much a blood sport competition. And the effects too, like Ulysses Bloodstone ends up giving the instructions for the hunt himself. He gives his own eulogy / instructions, and I mean has a very wind up Jack in the Box casket, and apparently his final wishes were to turn him into some kind of clockwork zombie, so he could greet his. And it's kind of fitting too, because he's like in this trophy. They're in this trophy room with like all these monsters' heads on the wall. I mean, there's one that looks like Bigfoot and Nosferatu and like a whole bunch of other different monsters, and there's weapons used in the hunt. And so yeah, he's almost like just taxidermy and stick me up here with all my other other trophies, which is fucking weird, but looks cool as shit. Like yeah, hey, maybe that's what I'll do when I die. Like, hey, somebody just like turn me into some kind of clockwork zombie. I'll wind me up and I'll like podcast. There's enough like recordings of me speaking that it's like, yeah, we can just make you say whatever you want. We'll just wind you up and just hit the soundboard and have the first podcast hosted by a corpse, or at least a current corpse. But it's Halloween. It's time for spooky things like that. And you even see, like I said, Jack coming in and checking out all the hunters and looking at all the things, and he gets greeted by the the Scottish hunter, and he's like kind of a braggart dude. Like he looks like some kind of barbarian. Like he should be in like Lord of the Rings, and he's like, I've killed 35 monsters. And he's like, oh yeah, that's quite a lot. And he's like, are any of these heads hanging on the wall any of your guys? And he's like, oh no, none of these are mine. And he points at the vampire one. And he's like, but I've fought him a few times. He looks very familiar. Yes, and then it's like, I know this. We're all supposed to be preserve our anonymity and all this, but it gets lonely. It's like, I just want a friend. Oh, I understand. Scottish hunter guy whose name I don't recall. But yeah, the corpse puppet gives them the instructions that tonight you will fight a monster like you've never seen before, and the bloodstone will be affixed to said monster, so whoever kills the monster can retrieve the stone, and the stone will weaken the monster, but it'll also piss it the fuck off. And it's being released into this very labyrinth-esque garden / maze / mausoleum, like cemetery thing. I was like, yeah, man, if I was win that friggin' lottery and get $1 billion, I'll build one of these crazy ass garden cemetery mazes. This thing looks badass. And so to start the hunt, all the hunters draw runes. And and the hunters are kind of pissed off. They're like, "Hey, we've all like earned our medallions to be here. What gives this Elsa chick the right to join our hunt?" And she's like, "Well, she was Ulysses' family, so by decree, she is more than welcome. She has earned her right to join you in competing for the Bloodstone, but she's also fair game, like all of y'all. So y'all can kill her if you want. I ain't gonna protect her." Yeah, fucking evil stepmoms and shit. But yeah, so Jack wins the prize to go first on. He gets a head start on the hunt, as the rest of them kind of do their secret handshake and repeat their whatever, I guess, the decree of the hunters guild. And it's here's the name of additional monster hunters played by Kirk R. Thatcher as Jovan, Eugene Bondorani as Azrael, Leonardo Lamb as Lorne, and Daniel J. Watts as Brasso al Hamacher, which I think that is the as Daniel J. Watts as Brasso, and Al Hamacher appears as Billy Swan, and I don't remember which is which. Maybe I should look that up. But yeah, he gets a first crack at the monster, and once they're all inside the maze, it's every man for himself, or woman, or whatever the weird Ziggy Stardust looking thing is. But as we soon find out, he runs into Elsa pretty quickly, and it's the first time we've kind of get the clue that he might not be as he appears, because he just runs into her, and like I said, they're supposed to hunt each other as well, and he's just like, we could just pass each other by. I don't have the need to fight you. And but then the Scotsman shows up and immediately attacks Elsa, and he uses that as his opportunity to piss off. So yeah, the Ziggy Stardust looking character is Azrael. The guy who I thought was Blade is Barrasso, Daniel J. Watts. It looks like the ninja is Leonardo Nam as Lorne, and Jovan was the cool Scotsman with badass axe. But she doesn't manage to get away from him, knock his ass out, and jack his axe, and immediately runs into Lorne, who pops out of a crypt with a badass wrist-mounted crossbow, and fight ensues. And yeah, like I said, Laura Donnelly is Elsa. She is she does some badass fight scenes. Or whoever her stunt person is, if she's got one, is quite skilled, because the fight scene with her and Lauren, I mean, she chops his arm off and ends up killing him with his own severed hand. She cuts off the arm with the crossbow, and then snipes him with his own crossbow on his severed hand. Brilliant. And then uses his body to hide from Jovan as he comes back and retrieves his axe. But yeah, like I said, this is not a. It's kind of a slow burn. There's not huge action sequences starting off, but then once the action sequences hit, they're fucking awesome. Like I said, the fight with those two, and even Jovan previously were pretty badass. Like, all right, I see y'all are trying to do this old school horror movie, but there's still some Marvel-esque action in here. And then you see Jack, because I said at this point this hasn't been revealed that he's not a hunter, but walking past a bush, a very green arm pops out and grabs him, and then it's like, hey buddy, and we get the reveal of our monster. It's none other than the Man-Thing, which I always kind of like the Man-Thing character. He's kind of shown up in a lot of stuff. If you're not familiar with Man-Thing, he's pretty much Marvel's version of Swamp Thing. He's a guy that was involved in it seems like there is a lot of Marvel origin stories that we were trying to recreate the super soldier program from that made Captain America, and we fucked it up. Where he, like I said, he was a scientist by the name of Ted, who got exposed to some kind of chemical and ended up bonding with the flora in the Everglades and became this Man-Thing that is kind of a creature made of plant matter, but also he has he's a monster, but he's very empathetic and very, but he has this acid touch that will burn anyone who has fear in their heart, and just kind of grabs people and fucks them up. So yeah, you see them greeting each other like old buddies, and he's like, dude, I fucking told you to be careful. And he's like, remember? And he's like, bullshit, you weren't careful. I'm the one who's always having to come rescue you. And no more. It's the last time I'm doing this. He's like, I brought this tiny little grenade puck. I got a plan. I'm gonna blow a hole, get us out of here. Just chill out. Let me go figure out find a good place to start our escape, and I'll be back. And he wanders into a crypt, trying to avoid one of the hunters that popped up, and ends up running into Elsa, who's in there, and he's like, you got an injury, can I help you? And she's like, no. And you're like, fuck off. And he's like, all right, but you're trying to put on a tourniquet there, and you're not doing a very good job of it. It's got to be untied. It's not going to work. Just please, why don't you I'm not here to kill you. If I wanted you dead, I could just sit here and wait till you bleed out. But allow me to treat your wounds. And they kind of get a little friendly. And she's like, why? You didn't want to fight me earlier, and you didn't want to fight Jovan. Why are you here if you're not a hunter? And he's like, well, I'm not really that type of hunter. And she's like, yeah, neither am I. And he's like, I don't care about the bloodstone. You can have it. I'm here because I want to free the monster. Help me get the monster out of here, and you can have the bloodstone. I'll help you get it back. So they kind of come to an agreement, and she's remembers an old story that her father told her, that I guess her crazy aunt would rise up from the grave someday. And she's like, well, if she actually believed she was going to able to be resurrected, she would need a key to get out of this crypt we're locked in. So sure enough, they open up her tomb and find keys, and also a badass grappling claw thing. It was very much like a video game. Ooh, I found a power up. It was like a very much a Castlevania, Simon Belmont type of toy that will come into play later on. And he tells you, all right, you go find my friend, I'll go find the spot to set off the bomb to get us out of here. And she's like, all right. He's like, all right, when you see him, just greet him as an old friend, call him by his name. She's like, all right, what's his name? The monster, his name is Ted. She's like, Ted. Okay, that's a weird name for a monster. But sure enough, she's running through the the maze and runs back into Jovan, who all of a sudden Man-Thing appears and just grabs his head and freaking, melts him, and then, like, growls at her, and then she's like, "You must be Ted." And he's like, immediately stops, like, "Huh? Ooh, you called me by my name. Like, what's up? Like, come with me. We'll get you to your friend Jack." But yeah, just him going from, like, beast mode to, like, "What? You called me Ted? No, hi, nice to meet you." Oh, and sure enough, Jack has a little trouble with the explosives, but manages to set them off, and Elsa snags the stone off of Man-Thing as he's with her cool grappling hook thing as he's escaping. But then Jack tries to pick up the stone and hand it to her, but since he is a werewolf by night, the stone, like, zaps him, and they're like, all the hunters arrive and, like, "Oh, he's a monster pretending to be one of us, and you helped him, so now you're both in trouble," and knock them both out with sweet taser sticks. And they all wake up inside a giant bird cage back in the thing, and Elsa's like, all like, she's like, "Just, stay away from me until you can't." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "I know you're a monster, and they're gonna execute me and just, like, let you eat me." And he's like, I'm not that kind of a monster. I track the moon. I keep track of that shit. I lock myself up to keep everybody safe. And, like, we've got 5 days before the next full moon. Like, we're good. We got plenty of time to escape this. She's like, "You don't understand. The Bloodstone has the power to train 5 days. We got 5 minutes. They're about to, like, turn you to a monster and have you eat me." So he's like, "All right, here's the," goes over and starts sniffing her very quickly. So, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I'm trying to get your scent. To, like, whatever happens, do not break eye contact. And hopefully by memorizing your scent, I will recognize you once I change, and I won't harm you." And she's like, "Will it work?" And he's like, "It worked once." So, better than an alternative. But then he gives this great speech where, the crazy Verusa comes in and, starts mouthing off, and he's just like, you think he's kind of begging for his life, but he's actually almost, like, threatening them, because he's like, please, don't do this. If you want to kill me now. How's it go? "If you want to kill me now as I am. For once I change, there will be no mercy." So I was like, that's fucking badass. And sure enough, they do a magic chant and turn him in. But like I said, they're going for the kind of minimalist, old school 50s or 40, early 40s horror vibe. So we don't actually see the transformation, but the way they shoot it is so much better, because Elsa, who has been this totally, like, tough ass chick through this whole movie, she's seeing his transformation. So all we're doing is hearing, like, the noises of the transformation, and the camera is just doing the slow push on her face as she's watching him change, and just the absolute look of horror and fear that's on this character's face that has been, like, a total nonchalant badass this whole thing. Like, that, I think that, like I said, that slow push on just her reaction to the change was better than seeing the change itself. Like, it was fucking awesome. I mean, it was like, she was just straight horrified. And even after the change, it's a few beats before we actually see what Jack looks like. I mean, we get, Verusa talking shit a little bit too close to the cage, and, a hairy arm reaches out and grabs her arm and tries to pull her in the cage, and all of a sudden all the evil henchmen come in with their stun sticks, and for some reason it starts smoky, it turns foggy in there all of a sudden, and they're all trying to, like, tase him, and then it gets too smoky and nobody can see, and then they look up and there's, like, a hole in the top of the cage where something has ripped out, and everyone's, like, looking around trying to figure out what's going on, and all of a sudden he just, like, jumps down from, like, hanging off one of the trophies, and it starts murking dudes, and then, like, finally you get, like, a pose of him just standing there, and even then it's, like, backlit, very shadowy, so you don't get to see a lot of the detail of it. Like I said, it's still, they could have gone, like, full CG. I mean, because Man-Thing's like a full CGI character. And I mean, they could have gone that, but no, they still looked like it looked almost practical, but it was like so like in shadow and not really like direct, that, like you said, it can still concealed a lot even when you got like the full shot of it. And then he just kind of just starts, bites one dude's ear off, and then gets into a whole fight with like you know, we know Marvel loves to do hallway fight scenes, so he ends up in this kind of hallway leading toward the exit and like fighting all the stun gun guys, and just just ripping dudes apart. I mean, it's all black and white and kind of in a shadowy area with only lights coming from like an open door, but blood is getting like slung into the camera. And it's impressive for I was like, okay, this is pretty badass. And then Elsa herself escapes and joins the fight, and grabs her father's sword and takes out two of the two of the hunters and some sweet sword battle. I mean, blocks dude like blocks her sword, ends up low, and she ends up just kicking his foot out from under him, and he ends up like falling neck first onto the blade. I'm like, all right, that's like a pimp move. And then fighting Azrael, like ends up like running her through with the sword. She's like I said, she recovered from that moment of fear to like be a total badass, and ended up even saving Jack, because after he takes out all the henchmen, Verussa comes back with the Bloodstone, and he tries to charge her, and she just zaps him with the Bloodstone and starts to try to fry him with that. And when Elsa runs back with the her little whatever grabby grappling hook thing, and yanks her off of Jack and knocks her out. But then she goes to check on Jack, and he leaps upon her, but she's just tries to stay very calm. She's like, Jack, are you still in there? And kind of reaches up and like scruffs his chin, and he finally like gets that look of recognition, like, oh, okay, this person's not food. I can fuck off now. And he runs out the emergency exit or whatever, because and then crazy stepmom returns and has a pretty sweet blunderbuss, and is like, you've let him scream, you've let him go. You were a freaking disappointment, and now you're gonna die, as and so you can no longer taint the memory of the Bloodstone name, yada yada yada. And then we get Man-Thing's return, who since Jack is the one who always have to save him, he's like had to, and Jack got caught saving him. Ted had to return to save his buddy, but his buddy had already escaped on his own. But yeah, he comes crashing in through the skylight and just double acid hands that bitch, and just like fucking melts the shit out of her. And the look on Elsa, she's like just amused by this. It's kind of like, "Aw, Ted came back and saved me." And then Ted's just looking at her, just kind of shrugs, and she's like, yeah, he kind of has this look like, I'm here to rescue Jack," and she's like, "Oh, he went that way." He's like, "Oh, okay," kind of like waves goodbye, and then like it cuts to this like overhead shot of this whole room where there's just freaking bodies scattered everywhere, and like the switch of Man-Thing from monster to Ted is just like it was before when she called him by the name, and all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, and hi, how nice to meet you," and monster talk. But you see him kind of like gingerly like tiptoeing over bodies through the room, like, "Oh, sorry, I killed some people. I'll just be going." Just it was very funny watching him just kind of tiptoe over bodies trying to get out of the room, and then stops, and he's like, "Well, if Jack has gone werewolf mode, he's probably gonna be naked whenever I find him. So here, let me grab this discarded robe from one of the cultists, so he has something to wear once I find him." And wanders off into the night. And Elsa, being the last hunter standing, claims her birthright of the Bloodstone, And like the one survivor is the weird butler, and he's just like, excuse me, ma'am, I just wanted to make myself at your service. She's like, yeah, fine, clean up all these fucking bodies and like go get me a whiskey or something, and just kind of sits down in a chair like, I can relax now. And then it does this thing where, because the whole thing, they never give you a year. There's never like 1873, but it being in black and white and everyone using kind of antique weapons, which I figure that's the Hunter way, you never know when this is taking place in the Marvel Universe, because we know there's kind of rumors, teases that they were eventually going to get a Midnight Suns with, Blade and Moon Knight and all these other kind of more supernatural branch of Marvel. But like I said, the way this looked, it could have been 1940s. Everyone's kind of wearing generic, not really clothing that could have been from like any era, but it really looks like it's everything's kind of antique. There's no cell phones or nothing like that. You don't see any vehicles, so there's nothing really to give it away. But then as soon as Elsa picks up the Bloodstone, it kind of starts playing, was it Somewhere Over the Rainbow from like Wizard of Oz? And everything starts to, kind of like if you've ever seen the original Wizard of Oz, it starts off black and white and then switches to color. And everything, like I said, when they start playing that song, everything slowly starts to regain color. Almost like the black and white was just an effect of the Bloodstone. Because every time you saw the Bloodstone, it was in color, but nothing else was. So once, I guess, she claimed the Bloodstone, everything went back to proper color. And you're like, oh, this may actually be current times. Maybe we'll see Man-Thing and Werewolf by Night in some kind of future Marvel property. If we do get a Midnight Sun, or if I can show up in Blade or something, which would be badass. Because, like I said, Man-Thing is just a cool character. And then it cuts to the humanity of Man-Thing just cracks me up, because it cuts to Jack waking up in the morning, and he's in like a little, like Man-Thing's built him a little hut. He's like in a little hut, and dude's just sitting by the fire playing solitaire with like oversized cards. And there's like a French press next to he's made coffee. There's a French press next to the fire, and he's already got a cup waiting for Jack when he wakes up. And they just I mean, you can only hear one side of the conversation because the rest just sounds like monster grunts. But he's like, "Did you make it out?" He's like, "Oh, good." And then he says something, and he laughs at whatever he says. Like he's told him it's like two buddies busting each other's balls. He's just like, kind of laughs at the joke. And he's like, no, I'm the one that always has to rescue you. You did not rescue me. He's like, all right, fine. What are we having for dinner? Sushi? Okay, yeah, all right, I'll agree to sushi. And it's just ridiculous. These two monsters having a very friendly conversation. And I hope maybe this becomes an annual Christmas thing. We get like, Werewolf by Night Chapter 2 next, or some of these characters show up in Midnight Suns or some other future Marvel property. Who knows at this point, but I am down for it. Let me see what else. This being where I kind of wanted Moon Knight to show up at some point, or Khonshu or something, just since that originally walked in, or whatever. That's where kind of Moon Knight's origin came from, that comic. But yeah, for like this kind of 1 hour long special event, I liked it. I'm enjoying it. Like I said, I hope they do more of these. And then I saw another movie that, as good as Moon Knight was, this one is equally bad. And maybe I still have to go back and watch it again, because maybe the fact that I watched it back to back with Moon Knight tainted my opinion of this other movie. But the Rob Zombie's Monsters that we talked about on Nerd News previously, it's not good. And I mean, Rob Zombie as a director is kind of polarized. Some people hate him. Some people, I've always liked Rob Zombie's stuff, but dude should stick to legit horror. I don't know if comedy is his thing. And I get what he was trying to do. Everyone's like, well, it's the guy writing a love letter to the original Monsters, and he tried to recreate that wacky 60s or wherever that show came on, that style of comedy. But I don't know, Sherry Moon Zombie, just the voice she does is irritating. Like, it's not so much the actor's performance as the kind of material. I mean, it had a late night sci-fi feel to it. Like it was intentionally trying to be a cheesy, low budget horror thing. But Werewolf by Night did a great job of recreating that classic look with the black and white and the old style logos and all that, and the sounds. This was all in color. And it was, if you've ever looked at, because original Monsters was in black and white, but if you ever looked at photos, color photos from the filming and the set of that stuff, everything was really bright colors. I mean, I guess you have to do bright colors to make it look good when you shoot in black and white. I mean, even like whatever Grandpa Monster's face is like more blue than it, and it appears like kind of white and gray in the black and white. So it's all done in, like, I guess, proper color for the time. But it's also, instead of like where Werewolf by Night's kind of a grainy look to it, it's shot in really high def, which with those colors and the high def shots just made it look cheap. And not in a good way. Like, it looked like something that should have been a YouTube show. Like, something that, like, you know, a couple people just kind of made on their own and released on YouTube. Not a, I don't know what the budget is, you know, big budget Netflix Hollywood affair. And it's like, I don't think I laughed once in this, almost in this entire movie. I was just like, I had such high hopes because I love the Monsters, I love Rob Zombie, but this one just missed the mark. And I said, I haven't watched it again. I think it, like I said, I really liked Werewolf by Night, so it may have tainted my experience of the Monsters. Maybe one day when I have a little time, I'll sit down and finally give that a second shot. But I think it would have been a lot better if it had been shot in the traditional black and white, like the TV show was. And it's a prequel. It kind of ends with, and it kind of cuts to black and white at the end when it's like, all right, this is where the show starts off, but this is showing how Lily met Herman, how they got married, how the shenanigans that occurred to cause them to move to America, to the famous 1313 Mockingbird Lane and all that. So it's kind of a prequel to the Monsters, but there's just a lot of dumb shit in it. I mean, if I had to pick a positive, and like I said, I don't know, Sherry Moon's, like, I guess her performance was kind of like the original stuff, but just, I don't know, the voice just got on my nerve. But the guy who played, and I can't remember his name right now, but the guy playing Grandpa Monster is fucking perfect. Like, as bad as this movie was to me, like, his scenes and his acting was hilarious. Like I said, that guy playing that character, I'm good with. I would like to have seen him in a better version of the Monsters, but it wasn't that bad. I was actually kind of, you know, like I said, his performance alone, I'm sign off on. But the rest of the movie, and yeah, whatever. Herman's always been a dad joke type person, but yeah, just oh man, even me, a connoisseur of dad jokes, just the and it may have been one of my friends pointed this out, that it very much was trying to be of that era of the Munsters, but society has changed so much that, I mean, if you showed that to your grandpa who actually watched the Munsters, they may have been like, oh, this is funny as shit. This is just like what I grew up with. But me as an adult was like, I don't find most of this funny. I may be wrong. If I'm wrong, hell, hit me up in the comments. Send us an email, send us a DM, hit us up on the Facebooks, the whatevers, the YouTubes. And since I don't have a cigar to wrap up and give you a final review of, I guess this will be it for this this episode. Check us out if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a like, give us a subscribe. If you're an audio only listener, I'm going to try to do some science and news by myself, so stay tuned for that, and we'll be right back. And you've been watching the Cigar Nerds podcast. Check us out on cigarnerdpodcast.com. We're on the ESO Network at esonetwork.com. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Cigar Nerd Pod. Remember, smoke them as you got them. Like, comment, and subscribe.